Hey, it's Maximo and welcome to Maximo's Travels. This video will be day one of an 8-day self-drive trip to the Canadian Rockies. We start our journey at Calgary and drive all the way to Banff through gorgeous scenery. We ride the Banff Gondola and head up to Sulphur Mountain, where we take in extraordinary views of the Bow River Valley and all the mountain peaks around it. We experience our first light sprinkle of snow and then walk up the walkway to the mountain peak. We take in the astonishing views as well as some of the local wildlife. We check out the interpretive centre before heading back down the mountain and spending some time in the Banff township. We have a very nice but very expensive dinner at a steakhouse before travelling to Canmore and checking into our accommodation. Please join me. I've just come back from a monumentally fantastic trip to Canada and the US. The first part of this trip was an 8-day self-drive trip to the Canadian Rockies. This video is part one of an 8-part series of my trip to the Canadian Rockies. A lot of time, effort and planning was spent in making this a perfect trip. If you're interested in following my itinerary, I have produced a one-page PDF of my itinerary that's available for free download from my Buy Me a Coffee storefront. Click on the QR code on the screen or use the link in the description. I've also created a paid 11-page detailed ultimate itinerary for the Canadian Rockies. It's an 8-day self-drive trip that includes tips and tricks, how to get there, accommodation, distances, maps. It's a fantastic guide that will save you time and effort in planning your perfect Canadian Rocky itinerary. We begin our journey at Calgary. We stayed in the Hampton Inn near Calgary Airport. I'll leave a link to this hotel in the description. I'll also do a review of the hotel in an upcoming video. We had a pretty good night's sleep considering the 20-odd hour journey the day before, as well as the 16-hour time difference between Melbourne and Calgary. The hotel shuttle bus took us back to the airport, where we picked up a hire car and started out towards the Rockies. Our first destination was Banff, 143 kilometres and around about 1.5 hours away. As we got closer and closer to the Rockies, they became bigger and grander. What a majestic sight. And the closer and closer you get to the mountains, the more you realise that they're there on such a vast, grand scale. They stretch for more than 2,000 kilometres from Montana in the USA all the way to northern Canada, the Yukon. It was a pretty easy drive with a divided highway all the way to Banff. The sights and landscapes along the way were truly breathtaking. It was the 1st of June and it was still reasonably cool. The higher we got, the colder it got. The temperature in Banff was around about 15 degrees Celsius. We were quite surprised by the amount of snow cover that were on the higher hills. It didn't take us long to get into Banff. We parked at the free car park that's adjacent to the main train station in Banff. We got out of the car just in time to see a huge train pass us by. There's restricted parking in the Banff city centre, so parking at the train station car park is your best bet. We left the car park and walked the 10 or so minutes into the centre of the township of Banff. It was quite vibrant, plenty of people walking around, even though it was a bit overcast and gloomy. We'd come to Banff to ride the gondola and head up towards Sulphur Mountain. There's limited parking at the gondola, so the best thing to do is to purchase your gondola tickets from the Elk Avenue Motel or Hotel, and then either ride the free shuttle bus or catch the roam bus, which is more frequent and only $2 a ride, up to the Banff Gondola. The roam bus arrived first, so we jumped on it it was quite packed going to the gondola. It was pretty slow going and we only just made our timed ticket entry to the gondola. The Banff Gondola tickets were quite expensive, but it was fairly early in the season and we didn't have any issues getting a ticket on the day. If you're travelling later in the season, it's usually much busier and I would highly recommend pre-purchasing your tickets. The tickets are timed, both going up and going down. We allowed 2 hours and 20 minutes on the mountain, and that was a good time to be up there. It allowed you to have a walk up to Sulphur Mountain and explore the visitor centre and have a bite to eat. We did have our warm coats on because the elevation was around 2,300 metres. The temperature at the top of the mountain hovered around 0 degrees Celsius. The ride to the top of Sulphur Mountain took around 8 minutes. The gondola gains a height of around 700 metres. The ride up there offers spectacular views of Sulphur Mountain, the Bow River Valley, which Banff sits in, as well as the nearby mountain ranges.
So you've rented your car already?
Yeah, this morning.
And you're driving out of here as soon as you get done this, you're going to head to Canmore?
Yep.
Check in?
We can't actually check in until 5.
5 o'clock?
Yeah.
They're short-staffed.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is crazy.
yeah.
was quite cold and windy as I headed back towards the visitor centre. I'm glad I rugged up. When I got to the visitor centre, there was a whole heap more of the bighorn sheep just milling around and grazing. We thoroughly enjoyed our time on Sulphur Mountain. The views were utterly spectacular. What a great introduction to the Canadian Rockies. We went back to the visitor centre to warm up. We had a coffee and a snack on the ground floor, but we also went upstairs and checked out the restaurant. We didn't have time for a sit-down meal, and the prices were quite expensive. There's a small interpretive centre in the visitor centre that lets you have a look at some of the history of the area, as well as some of the fauna and flora. And the views from the full glass windows of the interpretive centre are fantastic, especially considering that you're nice and warm in the air-conditioned comfort of the interior of the building. Our time on Sulphur Mountain passed very quickly, and it was soon time to catch the gondola back down the hill. What a great first day introduction to the Rockies. The gondola ride was fantastic. The views from up on Sulphur Mountain, truly impressive. We then made our way to the bus stop and waited for the bus to take us back to the township of Banff. We wandered around town for a little bit, had a look at some of the shops, and seeing as our body clocks weren't still quite right, decided to have an early dinner. For dinner, we chose the Maple Leaf Steakhouse. It looked quite Canadian and iconic, both inside and out. For dinner, I had duck with a risotto and a broccolini, while Joe had a vegetarian gnocchi dish. The food and service were fantastic. The restaurant, it was quite expensive. The two dishes with just plain tap water came to around 85 Canadian dollars or close to 100 Australian dollars, plus a 15% tip, which made the meal quite expensive. We finished our scrumptious meal and headed towards Canmore, which was around about 30 minutes away. We got there around about 6:30 p.m. as check-in was only open from 5 p.m. onwards. We chose Canmore because there was a much more accommodation available when we booked, and the prices were considerably less expensive than Banff. We stayed at the Sunset Resort in Canmore. I will do a separate review of this resort in an upcoming video. Canmore was a charming town, as I'll explore in the next couple of videos. The resort was a little bit out of town on the other side of the railway line, but it offered stunning views of the nearby mountain ranges, as well as having free on-site parking. We didn't feel like we missed out on anything, even though we had to drive a little bit to get to some of the attractions, as it's located just outside the border of the Banff National Park. I had such a wonderful time in the Canadian Rockies, and I really look forward to sharing my experiences with you all. I do hope you've liked this video. If so, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And hit that notify bell so you'll be notified of all my future videos of the Canadian Rockies and my other travels in this mammoth trip. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider buying me a coffee. Until our next adventure from the Canadian Rockies, you take care and bye now.